Now, our guest today is going to put us on to what a recession is, how it can come to be, why, how you can, if anything, protect yourself, if that's even possible. But the question about could there be a recession, I feel like when we see China really acting like, oh, y'all thought y'all was cute, it really says a lot about how the United States doesn't really understand its place in the world economically.
Nara, to use your metaphor, the US has the bigger gun, and so China ends up having more to lose from this trade war, doesn't it? You know, it can't sustain the loss of 15% of its export market, i.e. what you export to the US.
Not at all. China is fully prepared to fight to the very end because the world is big enough that the United States is not the totality of the market in the world. So if the United States wants to go in that direction of completely shutting itself out from the China market, be my guest.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't care. We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States. And we expect to survive for another 5,000 years.
Please welcome Ms. Morgaun Debaun, who, while that clip was playing, was like, yeah.
We do not care.
That was nuts.
We don't care. That's critical.
He said, we don't care, Morgan.
15%.
That's not it. Also, she was really trying to act like 15% was something.
It's nothing. I mean, the middle class around the world is growing so much quicker than it is here in the United States. Our middle class is shrinking. So China don't care. They're like, we can wait 30 years. We do not care.
They actually, I read today that they replaced the exports. They replaced America already with Brazil and somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. Nigeria, Brazil, much larger populations, growing middle class.
Okay, Morgan, first of all, y'all give it up for Morgaun Debaun.
What's up, everybody? I've been reading your comments. Good to see you.
By the way, y'all, Morgan was here before I was.
It's true. Amanda's at 9:15, and I'm like, I have had Amanda heat before. Today was not the day. I couldn't take it.
Okay, so let me just take a moment to say I just told my mother that story the other day. I said, you know what? Let me tell you why I F's with Morgaun Debaun. Because I gave Morgan heat one time.
Bro, I remember like it was yesterday. I was like, this is recording me right now.
I said I gave Morgan heat one time. And she could have been like, I don't F with her. She's whack. Da, 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 da. She did not. She did not. Morgan did not. And Morgan is in my book because there was a time when I was like, what am I going to do? And young Morgan was like, what?
Math is not mathing with your anxiety.
Y'all, Morgan came to my house and sat by my pool and got me all the way together with love and knowledge, my two favorite things. So thank you, Morgan, for taking the heat and not burning the bridge with it.
You know, that's what sisterhood is about. That is what it's about.
I wonder if we're talking about the same thing.
I don't know. Maybe not.
I'm like, did I get Morgan?
I'll tell you. I'm talking about when you called because Shadow and Act wrote an article that you did not like.
Oh, that's not what I'm talking about.
Oh, what are you talking about?
I gave you heat about merch one time.
Merch? Oh, wait. That was even earlier.
When did I write? What was the issue with Shadow and Act?
Oh my gosh, that must have been in 2018. It was probably during the Insecure days, I imagine. It must have been 2018, 2019. I was living in downtown LA and it was early. I was about to walk to work and my phone rang. And I said, what's she calling me for? What's up? And you was just heated, just mad.
I wonder what the article was.
I don't even remember. I don't remember. I'm sure the team maybe didn't fact check something or how they described it was, potentially
flagrant.
Yeah.
Synonyms. Can you please?
Black media.
Because black media, but then you see in real life though.
Look, I could take the heat.
Black media be on some. I remember when black media, do you know what's funny about the autism stuff is that in 2020, I did an interview with E. 2019, 2020, I did an interview with E where I just was mentioning like, sometimes I be feeling like I might be on the spectrum. And I like gave some reasons why, but like that wasn't when I had really looked into it. And there was Madame Noir. I think Madame Noir did an article on this, and it literally says Amanda Seales says she's autistic, but it was done in a in a funny style kind of way. I had to give them a call.
You know, we're used to calls as owners of multiple brands. I'm like, just call.
But I don't have a publicist, so that's the thing.
Yeah, that's
it's like
right.
a lot of people are expecting the publicist to call or whatever, but I don't. So I was like, I got to pick up the phone. I mean, we didn't. It wasn't a turn up, but it was just like, so give me some insight into how we got there. And she was like, I don't even know.
I'd be like, I don't know. I haven't even read the article. I didn't write it.
That's what happened.
I'll go find out.
Right.
Anyways, we're here to talk about a recession.
Well, yes, we are here to talk about everything is all connected, though. Everything's all connected because listen, black media is about to feel a recession too. So
that's true.
Right. So tell me, when people are throwing around the word recession, I know that there's a connotation that we all apply to it, that this is a bad thing, but I don't think a lot of us really know why it's a bad thing and what it really entails. And so that is why I've called you in to level us up.
Yeah, for sure. I'm happy to be here and to talk to you guys about it. So a recession is a normal part of an economic cycle. So it's a circle. Sometimes things are growing and sometimes things are slowing down and shrinking. What the government wants and what politicians want and what civilians want is always a period of growth, right? We're always growing. The stock market's always going up. Our companies are always giving raises. There's always profits. Those profits are equally distributed amongst us. That is like the ideal scenario. And for a while there, America, because we were the global majority power, we were able to have that more often than not, as opposed to other countries that find themselves in a depressing economy that's shrinking and not growing more often than not, which is, I mean, you showed the world map. There's plenty of countries that's happening to, because the bigger countries like ours are taking resources out.
Right.
Alas, we find ourselves in a situation where consumer spending is decreasing. Inflation is increasing, meaning the price of the same thing is going up, even though the value of it is potentially going down. You get that bag of chips, it might have 10% less chips in said bag, but the price goes up nonetheless. Companies are not hiring. They're shrinking their workforces or replacing their workforces with lower paying jobs or technology, AI. And the result is that we all feel it more. So then it kind of starts this cycle where everyone's hoarding more of their money and their cash so that they can protect themselves for the fear of, I might get laid off, or the cost of things are going up. Well, maybe instead of going to Disney World, we'll take a road trip and go camping with our families and our kids. So people start changing their behaviors, which then continues that cycle of a reduction in spend.
So realistically, was this avoidable?
Realistically, economies go up and down all the time. So an average recession, I believe, takes between 10 to 12 months, the longest being like 18 months. But some of them can be really short. Like when we were in COVID in 2020, technically our economy went into recession for like 60 days, which I think was like March 2020, April 2020, and then we had a period of growth. So like I said, it's a cycle. The question is, are people going to do something to get us out of this cycle?
Because then it becomes a depression.
Correct. Which is a prolonged period of a recession. So, when the government did the stimulus checks, the Congress, for the record, did stimulus checks, that was their way of trying to get us out of a recession more quickly.
Okay.
And so the result was that we all had money.
Right. So it could stimulate the
economy and get us out of that cycle as quickly as possible. Right now, what's happening is that people don't know if we're in a recession or not, because a recession is typically defined as 2 quarters consistently of depressed growth. And under Trump, things are chaotic.
Yeah.
It's freaking chaos. I think that JP Morgan Chase has the likelihood of a recession at about 50% right now.
From what you have seen of his actions and his choices, does it feel like he's trying to create a recession? Because I've been seeing that type of chatter.
I don't think he's trying to create a recession necessarily. I believe he is trying to continue to give himself and his friends advantages financially and make those financial advantages larger than they were when he became into office. And I don't think he cares about the consequence of that. Like, I think that's more of it. It's like, I don't think he cares about
Right. So like recession,
outcome.
recession. It's like,
Let them eat
whatever.
cake. I don't care.
So like I was talking to someone yesterday about the market, and when people are saying people lost their retirement, I was like, what does that actually mean? Right. Because I was saying, well, if the market then resustains, like, can't they get that back? And they were like, here's the thing. If you are living off of your retirement at present, you cannot get it back because you are living off of your shares. And so because you're living off of them, you have less shares to sell when it does restore.
Yeah,
Is
the
that
population
accurate?
that's the most vulnerable is our older population, where they don't have 5 to 7 years to recover
And
from,
wait it out.
to wait it out. Just because a recession is over in 18 months doesn't mean the markets recovered in 18 months.
Oh.
Right? So it can take 3 plus 5 plus years for things to go back up to those income levels. I mean, we're even seeing it now, right? Like if you look at salaries today versus salaries in 2020, they're probably lower.
Yeah. I mean, I saw a statistic the other day that said, had the minimum wage actually grown at the same rate as inflation, then minimum wage would be $22.
Right. Wow.
Minimum wage is $7.25.
Wow. The federal. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so how can people live?
They're not. They're in public assistance. So the question is, what happens when people get off public assistance because the federal government is destroying it?
So what does happen? I mean, we're talking about a recession, but it just feels to me like there's an impending depression that would happen because people literally don't have money.
I think the question is, do rich people stop spending? So, like, the middle class is shrinking. So in some countries, you go and you're either poor or you're really wealthy.
Yeah.
There's like no in between. So that is what's happening increasingly in this country that we all live in. Although some of y'all in Guyana, where we all know.
We all over the
global,
place, baby.
global.
We global.
So, that's really important to understand, is like, we may not go into a recession because consumer spending on average stays flat or increases, but who is spending is different than who was spending before. So the population, when you look at the median versus the average, different. I know I'm getting into math. Y'all like, we didn't know we're having math
go
class
for it. Go
today.
for it, because they don't get math in this class.
Right?
So
it's important. It's important for everybody to understand this, because the question is, how do you protect yourself and your family? Because unfortunately, we're living in a society and a culture that is requiring us to think that way. And that's not necessarily how I think we all want to behave. Like, we want to behave in a way that we assume that the government, the police, our education system, the systems are designed to do generally good, more good than bad. We want to believe that to be true. Okay. But the truth is that is changing more rapidly than I think we all want to accept it, because it's really difficult to process. It's like really unfortunate for our mental health to process a world in which, hey, I might be driving on a highway and somebody else is going the other way on the highway, and they could, like, that could just happen. And there's no consequence for that.
No.
But if y'all travel outside of the United States, you could be driving in certain roads in Nigeria, and
people always say that. Everyone says that in Nigeria, the driving is.
I've been to Nigeria, okay? And I'm like, sir.
My homegirl said they drive in waves. She was like, that's what it feels like.
Everybody stops, let the other people go. Everybody stops because they've had to self-police.
Right.
Okay? And it's not for lack of police. It's for lack of incentives of the structure of said police. There's no incentive for them to do the right thing. So
Y'all
I
heard
know
that?
we think we're better than that. We're
We
not.
are.
We're not. That's the truth. We're not. We're like 5 minutes away.
Yes, we are absolutely very close. I don't know. We are there. I mean, for what it's worth, when I see ICE just being able to do whatever, we don't even know if they're ICE. People just.
I don't understand how people aren't freaking out more. I know that you said you had a guest on that was, and people were like, it's an alarmist. And I don't know how many more times people need to hear this.
Because people are telling themselves those people deserve it. That's literally what I keep seeing, particularly like when I see a lot of Black folks being like, they voted for that. And then it's like, well, first of all, undocumented people can't even vote. Right. And then it's also like, well, there are Black people that voted for Trump. So there's no they, right? Like, even in the grand scheme of things, we also don't even know where those numbers came from. These percentages of voters.
Visas. So they're saying there's students that are learning in this country, and then they revoke their visa without any acknowledgement. And then they said, you got to get out or else you're going to get deported, or we're going to deport you because we revoked your visa this morning. Excuse me, what? I was like just in class.
A Palestinian American was in his appointment for citizenship, and they came and took him out of the appointment for citizenship.
And he's been in this country for 10 years, legally documented with a visa.
And they took him out of handcuffs.
And because he was, just to be clear, he was helping negotiate more cordial relations on campus.
No, this is someone else.
Wait, who are you talking about? No, wasn't this the Palestinian guy who was helping
Mahmoud?
at Columbia?
No, this is someone else.
There's too many.
This is someone else. This is not Mahmoud Khalil. This is someone else whose name they didn't even catch. And I saw this yesterday.
That's heartbreaking. But that's kind of my point. Is like, we're just like,
the rule of law. And we're going to talk about this later in the show about, just the constitutional crisis went to another level yesterday when Donald Trump is sitting with Bukele from El Salvador, and they're both like, we don't got to bring Kilmar back. And then the question becomes, is this man even alive, right? And the concept of the difference between labor camps, concentration camps, and extermination camps, and like people not understanding that there's a difference. Like some of these places are literally just to kill
I don't think people care. I actually don't think people care. And if you don't care about that, fine. What you should care about is that we have a democracy with the judicial power. The Supreme Court, the highest court in our entire country, said, bring him back. And the executive office said, no. Okay, well, now what do you do when you've defied the Supreme Court? Now what? Now what are we going to do? Because now we're letting that happen. Like, how is there not protest? How are we even on this call right now and not all in DC?
Well, I'm not in DC because my days in the streets are done. But I get up here every day, all day, and talk. And what I do think is really brings us back to this conversation. A lot of the reason why people are not concerned is because they're more concerned about their money.
Yeah, that's true. It's a distraction. It's a great distraction.
People are really talking about, oh, we was in the streets on April 5th. No, you weren't. You weren't in the streets. On April 5th, there were people in the streets for Palestine, but there were not people in the streets on April 5th. They were at permitted places with food trucks that were set up.
Rally.
Yes, it is a pep rally that was created by, it's controlled opposition. And controlled opposition is literally just exactly what it says. It's opposing, but like with barriers and safe bumpers and safe structures. And it just looks like we are against, but not too much.
Yeah, which is very different than what happened when we did the protest for George Floyd and Mike Brown. I mean, those were not organized, sanctioned.
No, and they happened any time of day, any time of the week.
Every night.
It was, and we see that with Palestine protests. We see that with immigration protests, right? Like in LA, they was out on the 101. Like they literally stopped the highway. And we saw that in Dallas and Houston. So I think the reality though is that those people who were in those communities are the ones who are showing up for those protests. And yet we're not going to see folks show up in those protests until it is really affecting them. And when you see Donald Trump having an aside with Bukele saying, now we're going to go after the homegrown terrorists. And we also saw the lipless lovely, the White House press secretary, who, by the way, I think because I think she got a lip injection because she saw people talking about her nose.
But I haven't seen her updated lips.
Yeah, I think she got a lip injection because that top lip was definitely.
She's been like working out and stuff on Instagram. I'm like, nobody wants to see this. Please do better.
You're also married to like a vampire. He's like literally 85 years old. Long story short, though, there was an aside that was captured on video. And then you see her. Well, prior to that, she was also at the podium saying that Donald Trump is looking into legal ways to deport Americans. And I did my research for y'all, and I will talk about it later in the show about the legal way that he has found to deport Americans. Mm-hmm. And it involves BlackRock, and it involves land purchase, and it involves sovereign territory. So I will get into that a little later. Yeah. So I have some questions from the folks.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Lauren Moore says, Ms. Debaun, do we need to know the difference between inflation and price increases due to greed and price increases due to thinkings like, or I don't know if thinkings was the word, but like pandemics and avian flu?
I mean, you don't really need to know the difference. Here's what you guys need to do. I mean, we can argue all day about the why or the how, or we're getting here and all that. But the question is like, what do you do?
Yeah.
So here's what you do. First of all, you have to make sure that you have some cash. Okay. We're assuming that Trump is a rational actor, but in fact, everything about him has indicated that he's not, which means we're assuming that the banks are going to secure our cash. We're assuming that we're going to be able to go to ATMs and always be able to pull it out. We're assuming that the stock market will go back up within our lifetime. We're making all of these assumptions because that's the way it's always been. And it's very difficult, again, for our brains to process these types of truths. That being said, if you all are waiting for a public government system or mainstream media to say, Mayday, Mayday, it's time to protect yourselves, I want you to think back to COVID. How long did it take the federal government, not your state government, the federal government, to say there is a global pandemic and this is what you should do? You should wear your mask. You should do this. You should do this. It took them like 6 to 9 months. It was a really long time. So by then, hundreds of thousands of people were dying. So you have to decide when you are going to take action to protect yourself. Worst case scenario for you is that it doesn't matter. Like you just have some cash set aside. You have an exit plan. You're protecting yourself. You've protected your small business. You've thought through these things. It doesn't matter. And it never happens. And you can just blame me and Amanda and that's fine. Okay.
We'll take it.
We'll take it. Best case scenario is that you're prepared and that you're anticipating these things and you're able to actually protect yourself and your family, whatever that means for you. I want you all to just think about it. I talk about this in my new book, Rewriting Your Rules, which is like, how do you make effective data-driven decisions, especially when all of the data is showing us what's happening. And there's historical data from other countries that are showing us what happens. So first things first, cash. You need to have some cash. Second is be aware of the market trends. Be aware of what other people are doing. That is another set of data. I know it's overwhelming to look at things like CNBC, but specifically financial, go watch CNBC. Put it onto your Audible, whatever. Like just make it a part of your routine, even if it feels overwhelming, because you will gain more knowledge just through listening to these conversations and understanding what's happening. The third thing I want you to do is just make sure you have all your paperwork. You know, I went yesterday to court.
What would be considered paperwork?
Like, do you have your social security card?
Okay.
Like, I don't know about you, but I'm like, my social security card, I don't know where that thing is. I've got my passport, I've got photos of things, but like, do you actually know where your documents are?
I keep mine in my wallet.
Yeah. You know, but a lot of people
don't. Know what? A lot of people in here are asking how much cash.
Oh, I mean, I'm ridiculous. So
text me.
I mean, I literally told my fiance I want 10 bands.
Oh, yeah.
Like minimum. That's a lot of money for a lot of people, you know.
It is. It's a lot of money. Yeah. That's a lot of cash to just, unless you are literally a drug dealer.
Yeah. Because here's the thing. The assumption that you're going to be able to go into an airport and like buy a flight to get out. Like all of these assumptions are based off of like a rational way of living.
1000%. And that's the heart. You're so right. It's like, and that's why I've been talking about this a lot lately, that I keep having to check myself, because I will like create a space of safety in my mind based on rational thinking. And it's like, this is not a rational world that you're in right now. So
why are we doing this? Like, if they're coming to get you, Amanda, because you have been so pro-Palestinian so loudly, they're not going to let you in an airport that's federally regulated.
Well, we got to see, because I'm going next week. So
next week is not going to be the issue, right? But who knows when it trips over. And again, we could be completely wrong, you guys, and I'm absolutely okay with being wrong. But what I couldn't live with is us having this kind of train of thought and us not teaching each other how to walk through these motions of retraining your brain.
Absolutely.
You know,
not Rolando. Who knows how to fly a plane? Rolando said, who know how to fly a plane? Asking for a friend. I like to believe I know how to fly a plane, because when I would go to Belize and go to Placencia, they'd be putting you on these little planes sometimes. And one time I went out there and it was just a plane for 2 people. And I was like, ain't nobody else going to Placencia? And he was like, yeah, me. And I was like, you're the pilot. And I had to sit in the co-pilot seat. And I was like, listen, player, I need you to teach me. And you know, he had the nerve to turn to me and was like, so he like gave me the spiel. And I was like, I don't need that. It's just me and you. It's just me and you. He was like, welcome to flight 222. I said, sir, okay, let's say you have a medical emergency. What happens?
What do I do?
Right. He showed me. He was like, you do this. You do this. This is the horizon. Follow the horizon. Take my headset. Put my headset on. They will help you land the plane.
Yeah, I'm good. Just give me the parachute.
Adrian talking about she got an exit plan that doesn't involve flying. You got a boat.
Fine too. I mean, your exit plan could be, I'm in a red state and I'm going to drive to a blue state. Like, fair. I'm not saying it has to be extravagant, because there's going to be phases of things, right? But most importantly, I mean, even the stock market, right? Like a lot of people are like, buy the dip, right? Like the stock market is at levels that are basically a year ago. So down 20%, down 30%, depending on the stock that you look at. And you could buy the dip, but I would recommend you only do that after you've taken care of the basics, which means you have some cash set aside. You know, you have the water filter that you were talking about earlier. You have just like the basics. I have one of those. I have the water tub so I can have clean water in my bathtub that stays and doesn't evaporate. Like, just have that little stuff. Again, these things are important. And especially if you have small kids or a family that is, you know, you're taking care of elders, you're taking care of people who can't move around. You just want to be secure so that you can move on. You can let your brain rest from that part of this equation and then focus on, okay, in down markets, there's also a lot of opportunities to gain. So instead of just talking about the downside, let's take a second to talk about the upside.
Okay.
So you've taken care of that. Now I want you to dollar average cost your investments, which means you're putting in a little bit of money into the market on a regular basis, and that will allow you to take advantage of these prices that are at a discount.
I think the other thing a lot of people don't understand that's not how I meant to phrase that, but what I didn't realize was how, and it was you who really checked me on this, how the bank does not help your money.
Right. Yeah.
It's a secure, even in this concept, it's a secure place. But when we talk about your money, quote unquote, working for you, it's the least effective way for it to do so.
Yeah. Let's talk about it briefly. So there's a concept that I talk about, which is rich versus wealthy. Most of us have been trained to think about accumulating money, that like the end goal is a lot of money and zeros in your bank account. And like that is something that is a signal of success. The truly wealthy have their money work for them when they are not working. Like the actual end goal is leisure and freedom and you being able to make money even though you are hanging out.
Right.
On a yacht.
This is Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Rich Dad Poor Dad. Okay. There's a whole chapter of rich versus wealthy that I talk about. So the concept, and when I was talking to Amanda, when we were sitting at her pool, was like, you've done incredibly well for yourself. You need to put that money to work. And the thing that you can do to help your brain, again, get into a place where you feel comfortable investing in the stock market is you got to have some sort of end goal that is so meaningful to you that you're willing to take that risk. So the basic would be have your cash in a high yield savings account. That's 3.5 to 4%. Just a normal checking or savings account is like less than 1%. Okay. Oh, look at that graphic. That's my book that is out right now. Thank you, Amanda.
No doubt.
So you are managing your risk profile. So high yield savings account would be the lowest risk profile. There's literally no risk, right? Then upwards of that would be investing in an index fund, an ETF, like a very stable one, like the S&P 500, which is an accumulation of the top 500 companies. So it's not going to be too up, too down. The more risky would be an individual stock buying or, Bitcoin.
Right.
You don't need to do all that.
Everyone keeps telling me I'm supposed to get Bitcoin.
I mean, Bitcoin in a recession and a global restabilization, not a terrible idea to have some Bitcoin. Happy to talk about why, but it's not an investment strategy for accumulation of wealth for me. It's a safety net. It's like having the 10K in cash, having some money in Bitcoin, because if the global markets fail, Bitcoin is international.
I see.
An international currency.
Okay.
It's not owned by anybody. I know. I feel when I have these conversations with you all, I just don't want you all to feel overwhelmed. I want you to know that there is a way to walk through these things for yourself in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming.
Well, we're going to be asked, does moving money to a credit union provide any benefits?
Yes, a credit union is a great option because a credit union, especially one that you have local access to, they have different rules and they oftentimes can incentivize you with a higher savings yield. So they're just like a normal Bank of America or Wells Fargo bank might be 0.434% in terms of return on your $100 or $1,000. It will be higher at a credit union.
And when you say return, meaning you putting money in your savings account and it earning
interest on your account. So if you've got $100,000 and it's 10% interest, you do nothing, and now you have $110,000 at the end of the year.
And the reason they're giving you interest, y'all, is because they're using your money.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. I thought that was obvious. The reason that they're paying you is because they're taking this giant balance sheet of millions, billions of dollars and loaning it out to other people.
It's a Ponzi.
That is why Silicon Valley Bank failed. Remember when that bank failed many years ago?
And they had to buy it out, and they bailed
had to buy it out because they had overgiven loans to startups, and then those startups couldn't actually raise all the money, and so they lost all the money that they gave out, and they didn't have enough cash.
And so people are trying to take their money out, and the money ain't there. That's literally a Ponzi.
Yeah, it's not great, but that's how America's set up. So
fair. Yeah. Well, speaking to that, Cassie asked, how is it that the housing market is always going up?
Oh, that's a great question. The housing market isn't always going up. I mean, the cost of houses today aren't necessarily the same price as they were in 2020, 2021. In fact, if you bought a house in 2020, 2021.
I was there. I bought a house in 2021.
Yeah. So the valuation, depending on where you live, may not actually be higher than it was at that time. It just depends on where you live. And the interest rates are constantly changing. So when I bought my house, my interest rate is like 2.84.
Mine was 3.6.
Like, right?
Which is wildly low compared to
7%, which is what it is today. So even if the cost of the house stayed the same, the amount of money you have to buy it and pay your mortgage every month has 2x, is doubled. If Amanda bought her house at 3.5 and now it's at 7, that is 2x, which means that same house costs you 2 times as much in your monthly payment.
This is why when I sold the house, I was up here like,
we had cash, baby. And that's why I'm stuck in this house, because I'm like, my mortgage is so low that even if I have the equity in the house because it appreciated, I'm not moving because I'm not going to pay a 7% interest rate right now. When my interest is so low, I'm basically paying almost nothing for this house.
Okay, we have two more questions.
Okay.
Well, this is a great question from Adrian, I think. Is the middle class, so when we're talking about the middle class shrinking,
Yeah.
which side is dissolving more of the middle class, the rich or the poor?
I mean, what do you think, Adrian?
She already know.
She already know. It's unfortunately the middle class is getting squeezed not to their benefit. So they're becoming more in the paycheck to paycheck, making decisions about childcare, healthcare. You know, when you have to make decisions about your quality of life due to money, that means that you're moving down. When you're wealthy, you stop thinking about money. Like, I don't think about if I should buy the $7 latte or not. It doesn't impact my ability to pay
For the record,
childcare.
Morgan just flexed on us and said, I'm wealthy.
I'm just saying, that's not what I was trying to say. What I'm trying to say is there becomes a time in your life at a level where you don't have to think about your day-to-day purchases because it doesn't matter. The more you start to think about your day-to-day purchases and how it impacts your ability to do basics like childcare, healthcare, pay for your rent.
I mean, I remember making a choice about like, okay, if I go out tonight, I can't take a cab.
Yeah, I gotta walk
for the rest of the week.
I gotta walk.
I'm walking or I'm taking the train.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I had to deposit checks into the bank before we could go do something that weekend. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Like this will allow us
boiled eggs and oatmeal and avocados when they were cheap in California.
Boiled eggs, avocados. That actually sounds delicious right now. I mean, I feel like when Kamala Harris was talking about enhancing the middle class, that was to appeal to this demographic, but the working class doesn't want to be the working class.
And well, that's the problem. That's the problem that you just hit it right there, Amanda. The middle class was like, we want to be the wealthy, so we want to be with the wealthy guys, and the working class was like, we want to be the wealthy. Nobody wants to be the middle class. So everybody voted for the world in which they thought they were going to get more wealthy. And in fact, they voted against their own interests. Kamala saying very reasonable things like, we're going to give you a first-time home buyer's credit would have helped Adrian's or whoever the person before about like buying that house. And
if she had literally addressed that to working class versus middle class, I think it would have made a big difference. She never addressed the working class directly. Right. She specifically spoke to the middle class. And so people are not attuned enough, right, to be like, oh, I guess that could mean me. Like,
yeah, they didn't know who it would apply to, and they felt like they were going to want to paying for working class. Felt like they were going to pay for the people who had more money than them, and that was not what they wanted to do.
And I find that we're in a world where we're in the United States where nobody even knows what that, like, what does working class mean? What does middle class mean? Like, people are still now just learning this language. What is the ruling class versus the proletariat, et cetera, et cetera.
All that really matters is, can you pay your bills every month?
But people cannot.
And that's the problem. Like, to me, that's the problem. It's like, if you can't pay your bills, who cares if you're called middle class or lower class or whatever, or working class? Like, it doesn't matter. What matters is, do you have the skills? Do you have the resources and the network to get to a point where you can pay your bills consistently and not stress about it? And if you can't, then what are you doing to get out of it? Because it's not the government that's going to come and give you a stimulus
here's my
check.
thing, though. Is it fair to say, though, that in some cases and in a lot of cases, there is nothing to be done to get out of it? Because even if the government isn't going to come and help you out of it, they are also actively keeping folks from getting out of it. It's one thing for the government to not help you out of it, but it's another thing to suppress.
I don't agree. Respectfully. I think that every individual has free will, and there are tons of resources that are free or readily accessible for people to gain new skills that are in demand. I see it every single day at Afrotech. I see people who are not in tech. They get access to information about how to get these certifications in cybersecurity. They take the classes, the free resources given to you by Amazon Web Services or CompTIA or all these different
kids. Do they have time to do this?
Yeah,
how do they do this?
They make time because they know they have no other choice. And they're borderline on instability. And I see it. I think people are more than capable than what they think to get to work to the next level.
Respectfully, I got to tell you, that is a capitalist mind state. And I'm going to tell you what
I've told you this. I am a capitalist.
I know, but we're not here at the Amanda Land.
That's okay.
At the Israeli Million. But the thing about that is the blind spot with that is that it leaves out the actual human condition, right? And so what capitalism does is it speaks directly on a grid that ignores the realities of like being a human and having to live. And for a lot of people, the ability to actually exist is the work. Like they don't have time beyond literally just trying to feed themselves. They don't have time beyond literally just trying to house themselves. They don't have time literally beyond trying to remain healthy. And the government does not allow for any breaks in order to create the space to like do the things that you're talking about. So like meritocracy, because like meritocracy as it exists really is about like how much was invested in you. And a lot of people, when we talk about time being money, they literally don't have the time to invest in themselves. And because we keep seeing the margins shrink more and more and more and more, it's not only impeding their time, but it impedes their literal mental capacity to learn. So I feel like
I don't disagree with that. I do believe that for the majority of people who are in that scenario that you just described, it is almost impossible to have the capacity to get ahead and get out of the situation that you're in because all of the odds are stacked against you at every single turn. The moment that you get some wiggle room, there's somebody knocking at your door for said wiggle room. I don't
even
disagree.
In other economies, like Italy gives people vacation.
Yeah.
Like they get paid vacation, like even things like that, right?
And I guess my perspective is we're already here. So what do you say to that person? I choose to say, let's figure out a way despite the odds.
1000%. But I also feel like I'm not going to put it. I don't feel like I feel like it becomes our responsibility.
I agree.
Me and you. Like the truth of the matter is that when libertarians want to talk about like, we don't want a government, right? I'm like, okay. So if there isn't a government, what happens?
Nothing productive for the little guy.
And so if nothing and if nothing productive is happening for the little guy, guess who they're coming for?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not like they just shrivel up. So then
I do feel like my point still stands. Like I agree with every single thing that you said, but I do genuinely have examples of people who have figured it out. And to your point, it's my responsibility. It's our responsibility to make knowledge and information and opportunities accessible. It's our responsibility to pay for people's tickets to Afrotech, which I do hundreds of people every year. Like it's our responsibility to make information free instead of behind a paywall. Like
correct.
That is what we can do. And I can't make somebody take the time to learn about the opportunity. No. So, but for those who do decide to learn about the opportunity and decide to show interest, then how that's my job.
I think the other thing though is that as long as we are pouring into capitalism, we are propping up a system that is inherently harmful. Like I feel like you're only a capitalist right now because of your age. And I feel like over time, because I know your heart, and over time, your heart is going to outgrow the capitalism.
I've tried to get out. I mean, I write about it in the last chapter of my book about how I tried to sell the company so I could move on. But here's the thing. When I saw who I had to sell it to, they were going to do more harm than me staying the leader.
That doesn't make you a capitalist. You are in a capitalist. Capitalism is a framework that we exist in, but it doesn't have to be like our mentality.
If I'm not a capitalist, it would be because I have the privilege not to be.
Personally. Yes.
Which would then still make me a capitalist. I was a recipient of capitalism, which is why I had all this cash to not be a part of the system anymore.
You can't, even you saying like, I feel like it's my responsibility to provide opportunity for people to gain access. You're not actually a capitalist, Morgan. Actually, that's what we're all realizing here in the goddamn chat.
What's everybody saying in the chat? Hold on, let me look.
You're not a capitalist. You're actually a budding
social
leftist.
Enterprise. I'll take that.
You're not actually, you're a socialist. Yeah, because ultimately what capitalism says is exploitation is okay if you can figure it out. That's what capitalism says.
Oh, no, I'm 100% not that.
But
No.
that's what capitalism says, right? It says
No. I will give somebody else
it's
my paycheck in a
Darwinism.
heartbeat.
Capitalism is Darwinism. It's very, as long as I got it. So it was there for you. Why you didn't get it? That's your fault. I capitalized.
When I say a capitalist, I mean, I'm somebody who believes in enterprising. Like, I'm someone who believes that people have an opportunity to make money and create value through goods and services.
Doing that with a particular value system is the difference.
Correct. I am absolutely a social impact.
Hate to break it to you, sis. You came all the way here to find out you're actually not a capitalist.
I'm a social enterprising.
You're a socialist. I know you don't want to even say that, but you're a socialist because ultimately socialism on a basic level.
Type it to the chat. What
yes. Because that's what it is. It's like you should be able to gain by your skill set, by your, look at them. We love you, Morgan. Like you should be able to get, okay, so here's the major question. Do you believe healthcare should be free?
Oh, 100%. That's not even a real question. So my dad and my brother are doctors. So I'm like, I see how, my dad's a sickle cell doctor specifically. So I see,
You're a budding socialist. You're a mild socialist. If you read about it.
I used to be a socialist way more when I was younger. And then I learned more about other socialists. I don't know. I go back and forth.
Here's the thing about these ists, right?
Yeah.
Communist, socialist, whatever. A lot of times these theoretical mind states around how society can operate are specifically attached to individuals. And so then it's like, oh, like, yeah, but I'm not like Lenin, or like, I'm not like Stalin or whatever. And so then that makes us say, oh, I'm not that thing.
Yeah.
When ultimately,
or whatever. Yeah.
When ultimately it's like, no, you're that thing. You just don't agree with how they carry that forward. It's the same with like religion. Like you can look at a number of Christians and be like, I'm Christian, but I ain't that kind of Christian. I wouldn't apply it in that way. Like, look at Jewish people. Like there's a number of Jewish people who are like, I'm Jewish. They doing something else. That's not my Judaism.
No.
So it's that mindset. And the reality is that we are a young world in terms of these capitalist, socialist, communist concepts. And so they're still developing. Like these things are like 200 years old. They're still developing. They're still getting refined. And so with each generation, we see people being much clearer about the refining of how these things actually exist beyond theory and an application. So as we're talking, I'm like, hold up. She's not a capitalist. I know this person. I know her. She's not. Like, it's one.
I actually had to create a nonprofit because my board was like, you're giving away too much. So I'm going to make Blavity.org so I can give it away.
It's just that we've had these connotative words. We've had these words given so much negative connotation by those who genuinely want to keep exploitation as a virtuous methodology. Like that's really what it is. Like capitalism in corporate America teaches you that exploiting people, stabbing people in the back, taking people's ideas, etc., is not a measure of a lack of character. It's a measure of your vigor. You're the lion. But then when you actually look at the jungle and the way it operates, like lions be squatting. They be like, don't come over here.
Yeah, this is my territory. Just stay out.
So I say all that to say that you got your passport and came to Amanda Land to find out.
I'm a social enterprising, almost socialist.
Yes. And the more you read about it, I promise you, because I know the person you are, you'll be like, oh, I actually already do these things. I was just doing them. I was just doing that within a framework.
The definition, I'm somebody who believes in enterprising, which doesn't necessarily make me a capitalist, but by some people's definition, it might. Most importantly, I'm a value-driven entrepreneur.
That's the difference.
That's the most important thing.
That is the difference, though. Like someone who is in Korea in a market selling abalone and decides, you know what? I should also sell kimchi. They're still enterprising. Like if it's not on the level of Afrotech, right?
Right.
But if they're doing that in the same mindset of like, and when I sell these things to my community, I'm also going to trade.
Yeah, I'm not going to price gouge. I'm going to give the money to the grandma who made the kimchi. Totally.
Because we don't ever want to get into the mind state. We don't ever want to operate in bootstrap methodology. That if you just pull yourself up by the bootstraps, you'll be fine. Some people don't have fucking boots.
Yeah. So it's the responsibility of the people who have a lot of boots to redistribute said boots. I agree with that every single day. And I think for anyone who's listening, who's like, yeah, the point is actually not the labels. That's not our point. I mean, Amanda and I can banter all day. The point is, do you know your own values? And are you operating even when times get tough, even when the economy is going to be in a rough place, even when there might be danger and violence around you, even when there's other people who are losing their rights that they earned and that were given to them? Are you saying, not my problem? Or are you doing to the best of your individual ability, trying to help?
Here's the bottom line. We're going to require people like you to actively align yourselves with something different than capitalism, aka your values. Because and like when I say that, meaning like I had to do the same, right? Because I'm a very public figure, and at the end of the day, everything that we just discussed just now gets grounded in culture. The culture of America has been an exploitative one from its inception. And that can only last but so long, because now we're seeing where it's like we're eating our own, right? Like the United States is eating its own. So ultimately, the only way out of that is to change the mindset. And instead of eating our own, it has to be, well, how do we protect our own so that we can grow our own
and finance our own
and be sustainable? Yes.
That's right. And that's the reason the moment you moved off Instagram, I signed up for your Patreon. The moment. And every single person watching this needs to do the same. If you are a consumer of Amanda's information, the community, the energy that you're feeling right now, where you feel motivated, if you have the ability, you should help this sustain, because that has a greater impact than us just being consumers and not actually contributing.
And that whole consumer thing is what I think the biggest slap in the face is that America is going to receive, is that being a consumer will not save us. And I think we have really, like, I had to check my mom on this, because my mom will just buy stuff and I'm like, what is this? Why? And like trying to teach her that it's just overconsumption. Like it's not valuable to you, to me, to anything, so we have to at some point be conscious about how we are putting our money, our values, etc., into the world. I know you don't like being called a socialist. It's fine. Everybody in the comments is like, she don't like that. She don't like that.
Well, now me and ChatGPT gonna have something to talk about. Like,
don't use ChatGPT. That's using up all the water. That's using up all the water. Okay, but I really will say this. I really will say this. Just know, any word that America has applied a negative connotation to is one that requires research. Because this is a country that every 20 years tells you we've been lying for the last 20 years.
That's right.
So that's just a real basic metric. If they said communism is bad, then you have to at least be open to research what it really is, this thing. Because I know that for so long, and it's also even when America is standing on something is so good, America for so long was like, Israel is the greatest of all time. And then eventually it was like, I need to just research why they're like, what that really means, and I'm going into it with a completely open mind, but just knowing that I know where America is, I know what this country is, that gives me the litmus test of knowing what to put energy into. And I know that for a long time, I just took things at
face
value. And then you start to research. And again, everything is developing. Everything is developing. But I believe, and this is the last I'll say, I believe that it is going to be the values that determine how things develop. You're somebody who is in a capitalist corporate framework, but you have values. That's what makes you different. A lot of people do not.
And for anybody watching, if you ever are trying to question it, just try to remember what happened during COVID. Just try to remember when they said there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong. Oh, everything's wrong. Just try to remember that moment, because that was the clearest example of our lifetime of the systems were not set up for us to succeed and be safe.
And so we have to be the system. She gonna think about that for the rest of the day.
Child, I gotta go to Houston tonight and New Orleans. Hopefully y'all will be there for our.
What's happening?
We've got our book tour stop in Houston tomorrow night with Chameleonaire for Rewrite Your Rules. You can get your tickets at rewriteyourrules.com. And then New Orleans on Thursday night, and Black bookstores every single stop. So to Amanda's point about consumer spending and being intentional with your spending, just consider, even if you're going to spend the exact same amount, we're not asking you to spend more. We're just saying be intentional with where you're spending. So if you're going to buy a book, don't buy it from Amazon. Buy it from the Black bookstore. You're still spending the same dollar, but you're having an impact.
That's it.
That's what we're asking. That's it.
Back to community. It all goes back to mutual aid and community.
That's right.
And Andrietta said she's going to be at Baldwin & Co. So shout out to the people over at BJ and everybody over at Baldwin & Co.
Right.
Out in New Orleans. And congrats to you for writing a book.
Thank you. It's so fun. I can't wait to read your book.
Me neither, girl.
What's coming out in the fall?
November 4th.
I'm excited.
November 4th. It's.
Do we have a title?
Yeah, we have a book cover.
Wait, did I miss the book cover drop? Did you put that on Patreon? Wait, I haven't seen this.
Hold on, let me move this.
A midlife memoir. I love body waving.
Exactly. Body waving through the BS. Just come
I
on
love it.
through it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so excited to read this.
I'm very proud of it. And I am still not finished writing it. I'm in the chapter on codependency. And when I tell y'all, I've been working on this chapter every day for the past 2 weeks. It's just not, it's not done. It's just not done. Now, someone here.
Relationships?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough.
Because I chose to write about my relationships through that lens versus like this nigga and this, like that to me was not going to be, it wasn't elucidating. Like, it's just like, okay, this is a tell-all now. So it's like, how do you write about this through the lens of learning and working your way through it? And in writing this, I realized that my last relationship was about me recreating my childhood home life in order to cure myself. Yes, in order to cure myself, in order to heal my inner child. And that was an epiphany.
We've all done it.
Someone asked, has Morgaun ever sold data? Has Blavity ever sold data for, what was the question?
For anything. I mean, I can answer that regardless of the finishing of said question. Blavity sells data every day. I don't know what you think is happening on the internet, but everyone is selling your data every single day. I'm selling your data with your consent, but I am selling your data all the time. That is what people pay Blavity for, specifically on the media side. Afrotech, not as much, but more so on the media side. When you're on a website and they cookie you, which is happening right now while you guys are on YouTube, they're then tracking you throughout the internet and they are selling your data to advertisers. Okay. Sorry to tell you.
Well, this person was trying to come for you, but you just answered the question and that's that. Listen, because
it's not really a gotcha.
No, because this person continues, they're in here sowing discord. So put them in timeout, Rolando, Saint Enfant Noir.
Yeah.
You can't change the system. People will quote Audre Lorde's master tools, but never actually intellectually engage it. So to me, I'm just like, once you enter conversations around change to sow seeds of defeatism, you're not you're not entering the conversation with like the best of intentions. It's like when people say, all right, so we strike and then what?
Like, why?
I'm like, why are you even, why do you even ask us? So anyways, go to rewriteyourrules.com. Thank you, Morgaun, for leveling us up and giving us the knowledge. You are the best, beautiful, brightest, and congrats on being another mom again.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much. This baby is hungry.
Go feed them.
All right, y'all. Great talking to you today. Thanks, Amanda, for having me.
No doubt. Bye. Yes, go and get Rewrite Your Rules available wherever books are sold, but try your best to go steal them. Hello. Why did I say steal? Someone wrote steal in the chat. Try your best to go purchase at a Black-owned bookstore, particularly one that reports to the Times. I enjoyed laughing and learning with you. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And tell your friends. Also, listen to the podcast. It's available everywhere pods are casted. Listen ad-free by subscribing to Patreon Amanda Seales. Come on and join the Seales Squad. Views from Amandaland. Live 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Wednesday, with content on Thursday and Friday at YouTube Amanda Seales TV.